Hi everybody, it's Amanda. Today we're going to be discussing introduction to functions using arguments. So let's go ahead and run the program. It's a very basic program. It's going to multiply two numbers. So today we are multiplying two numbers. What number do you want to multiply? 3 times, what is the next number you want to multiply? 10. And the result is 30. Very basic. Again. So if you know what functions are, this program is not going to benefit you. However, if you don't know what functions are, this program will definitely benefit you, or at least hopefully. I hope so. Anyway, let's go ahead and go into our program here. So I had included our input and output stream as well as our cin, cout, and del. And right down here is where I begin with my prototype again. As you can see though, in my previous videos, we haven't had any functions with arguments. So today is going to be an introduction to arguments. And arguments are basically variables that are inside of the parameters of the function itself. And here is going to, so the prototype is going to start with the data type itself. Then it's going to follow by the name. You get to pick that, usually. And then you're going to include your arguments inside of your parameters. And as you can see, there is not a name for the variables being used inside of this prototype. This is a style preference. This is not a syntax error. To be more clear, we can use the same variables that we're going to be using down there. So it's going to be first num and second num. So as you can see, first num, second num, that is okay. The syntax is, though, this is the syntax. So again, we have the data type being used, and the comma followed by our parentheses, which is our parameters for our function. Here is our function name. Here is the data type that is going to return, and our good old semicolon. This is syntax. So I'm going to go ahead and change it back. I like to include the names of the variables, however, that is a style preference. So after saving my program, I'm going to come down to my function. So this is again my function. It's going to start with the data type. It's going to match my function that I'm going to try to use, so multiply numbers. And as you can see, I have my first argument with my comma followed by my second argument named second num. So I have first num and second num, both of the integer data types, and it's going to be returning an integer. As you can see, I use the keyword return, which returns first num, and if you don't know, this is a multiplication operator, and it's going to multiply it by the second number. If I wanted to make it a little bit more clear, just that I'm doing some math, even though usually people don't really do that just for basic math like that, then I can add my parentheses. However, there's not really a need to do that. So for this particular program, so I'm going to go ahead and remove it. As I come up to my program, it's going to ask the user for a number I want to multiply it by. Again, I have a different variable here. So I have an integer user num1 that's going to ask the user for the variable they want to multiply, and then it's going to extract it and hold it inside of the integer variable user num. And then the same thing goes for user num2, except for when we come down here. So when we come to this cout, you can see that this cout statement is using multiply numbers, and then it's using user num1 and user num2 followed by the stream insertion operator followed by the endel. This is the function call. However, in order for this function call to work, it needs these arguments inside of there. And by arguments, it needs these variables. So again, they don't have to have names in the prototypes, but it's very much more, I don't know, clear, I guess. It's more clear, I should say. If you have names for your variables, it makes sense. Again, we're coming into our main program here. So as you can see, when I did the function call, it just displays 30 because it doesn't have a cout statement. All it does is just return the two numbers that are being multiplied. If I wanted to use that function again, I could to multiply two numbers. It's very basic again. However, even if I wanted to throw this, so because we've been going over functions that don't return anything. However, let's go ahead and make this and turn this into a function real fast. So I'm going to do ask user for numbers. Actually, it's not going to take any parameters or arguments, I should say. So and then I removed all of that. Okay, so let me just go ahead and retype that out real fast. Alright, so as you can see, I added my variables back, and this was inside of my main program. So as you can see, it's going to start with the integer data type followed by the function name, and then it has two integer variables, user num1 and user num2, and it's going to say what number do you want to multiply, and then we use 3, and then what is the next number to multiply, and then we use 10, and it resulted in 30. However, if we scroll up to the main program, as you can see now, I have squiggly lines under my program. Oh no! This is because these variables no longer exist. I could go ahead and create variables for them if I wanted to hard code them. However, if I want them to be asked by the user, I could just go ahead and move this function call, and instead of just going ahead and erase it and retype it, I'm going to go ahead and, actually I'll go ahead and retype it for you, sure. We'll go ahead and do that. So we'll go ahead and add it down here. So I'm going to display in my cout, I'm going to use my multiply numbers. And in this case, I'm not using first num or second num. I'm actually using first num and second num technically, but in this case, these are going to be the arguments for what I'm using this function for. So this allows me to use code repeatedly so I don't have to repeat my code. And if I wanted to, I could say the result is, so I have my cout statement and then my stream insertion operator, and then the result is, and then here is my function call followed by my indel, and this is just my main, or my my function now for ask user for numbers. I guess I should say to multiply, make it more specific. Alright, so now I'm going to ask the user's ask user for numbers to multiply, and I don't need any arguments inside of this. The parameters, I'm sorry, because and I actually haven't done this function quite correctly just yet. So So I'm about to do my function call inside of main. So I also have a function call inside of my program, which I could probably return my multiply numbers, which there's not anything for me preventing that, but instead I should probably just switch this to a void function instead. So, and then it's turning red because it's not a void function up here. So as you can see, the difference between the void is I'm not returning anything. So down here I do return something because I am returning an integer, and these two variables that are being used are integers. So it's allowing me to return this result of this integer because it's using these two variables and multiplying them and returning one integer, which is what this function is doing. As for my void function, again, I don't have any parameters, but I'm using the function call to get my result. So when I run the program inside of my main function, or sorry, my main program, then as you can see, I get, so I'm going to, here's what number do you want to multiply, 3, multiply 10, the result is 30. So again, just to do a quick recap of what we are going over, sorry. So again, this is the prototype for our function with arguments or variables inside of the parameters, which is our parentheses that we're using for our parameters. So again, it's going to start with the data type, followed by the name that you declare. This is going to be user programmed or company programmed, depending on what you're doing. But these are the variables that are going to be used inside of the function itself. Again, you don't have to have the names. However, it makes it much more clear what you're using and why and what's going on with the program if you make the variable names clear. So again, this is multiplying numbers, and I have two numbers. If I wanted to make it a little bit more clear, I could do multiply two numbers instead, because technically I'm only multiplying two numbers, so that would make it more clear. So as I come down to my function, because I'm still on this function, I'm going to see, again, my data type. It's going to match my name of the function above my program, which is the prototype of each function. Ending with the semicolon, don't forget the semicolon, that's the syntax. However, my function itself, it does not have a semicolon besides when it returns an integer, which it only returns one integer. If you want to make it more clear again, you can add these parentheses, and then that shows you that you're multiplying two numbers, which is just going to return just one number. However, it's pretty clear without the parentheses too, that you're just going to get one number. You just do whatever works better for you. Once you come up here, as you can see, I had two squiggly lines. That's because I changed the name, not because something's wrong with my program. It's going to ask the user for the first name. Again, these variables only exist inside of this function. So if I go outside of this and I try to do user num1 and assign it 12, again, it's not going to know what user num1 is because it's not within that scope. So the scope only exists within these curly braces, which is this local scope within inside of this function. So if you like this video, hopefully this helps. I know this video is a little long. I'm sorry about that. Please like, share, subscribe. If you have any questions, please let me know. I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks for your time.